All right, welcome back to Ground Zero Salem. I am your host, Patrick. We're listening to Inverted's The Shadowland. Just got this bad boy in the mail. Mid-90s, mid to late 90s, I think, Swedish death metal. It's got kind of a more, I guess, sort of brutal American kind of vibe to it, but also got that nice Swedish melodic edge. Definitely second, third, or fourth tier Swedish stuff, but it is fucking great. I had the tape for a while. Wasn't even sure if it was Inverted, because it was like a weird bootleg tape and it didn't say the name of the band on it. After doing a little research, I found out that the record that I'd loved for years was in fact the one that I thought it was. So this just arrived in the mail. It just got to my doorstep. And we'll be listening to it as I talk about this massive collection update. Might split this into two. I don't like my videos to run too much over a half an hour. Half an hour is kind of pushing it as it is, even though if you watch my channel, you know that most of my videos are about that length. So I've gotten a ton of stuff in the mail over the past, going back to like 2 months, and I've just been caught up in talking about other stuff, doing the nostalgia videos and response videos and contest videos and that kind of thing. So let's get into it. A bunch of Florida death metal, it looks like I've been into. This is all old stuff. I haven't felt compelled to buy any new releases. To kind of dovetail with my last video talking about 1995, there is a ton of stuff that I missed out on when it came out in the mid-90s, or I just stopped caring for a while. And for the past 10 years, I've just been kind of catching up with familiarizing myself with it. And it's only been recently that I've felt compelled to own it and purchase it. A few of these are an after effect of me colluding with the Russians a little bit. There's some unofficial versions, I think, that I got from eBay. I don't really like to do that, you know, but stuff needs to get reissued. Especially stuff that was on Black Market, Nuclear Blast. Like, I don't know why that's not really happening. And one other thing before I get into this, little house cleaning. As I mentioned in the synopsis of my last video, I'm trying to work out the kinks with my new video and audio equipment. I think things are turning out a bit better. I turned off the autofocus. The last video, it was going in and out, like I said, like a drunk frat boy's vision. And I think I have it nailed down to where it won't, you know, go all wonky on you. So yeah, any positive or negative feedback, you know, just trying to get stuff to sound and look a little bit better. I have a real microphone. There it is. And I think I've got the sound ironed out to sound pretty decent. So anyway, enough of that boring shit. So a couple of weeks ago, I left the house, which doesn't happen super often these days, to go to a gig. First gig I've been to in 6 or 7 months. I went and saw Morbosidad, Blaspherian, Malleus, and this band, Desolate. And boy, was Desolate really good. Really, really good. Did not know about them. Apparently, they were around in the early 90s. They were like a Massachusetts death metal band that kind of went into a more blackened territory. They were around until, I think, 95 or 96. Called it a day, and then pretty much picked up where they left off and put out this one. This is Imperator of Flames. This is a compilation of demos. Sanity Obliterated. The bassist for this band played in a bunch of kind of doomy, I don't want to say stoner, but Sabbathy and doomy kind of bands from Worcester. He was in Warhorse, and he's currently in Conclave, and I think he might be in Benthic Realm, but don't quote me on that. They're all very good, especially Warhorse. Warhorse put out as Heaven Turns to Ash, which is one of my favorite doom metal records from the 2000s. So I picked up both Desolate CDs. They really killed it live. This is a compilation of the demos, like I said. You could see they were kind of going in more of a, I guess, kind of like an abrasive Swedish death metal kind of influenced direction on their demo from 94, The Scourge of Sanity. The one from 93 is a little bit more American and brutal, maybe a bit more of like kind of a suffocation approach. And then there's a couple of bonus tracks that were unreleased. And then on this one, they pretty much, I mean, it had been 20 years or something, and they pretty much picked up where they left off with kind of blackened death metal stuff. To me, it kind of sounds like You know how Angel Corpse took the Morbid Angel kind of template and just injected it with relentless speed that gave it sort of a blackened kind of feel? I feel like Desolate does something similar, but with more with like Entombed and Dismember, and weaving in like a blasting, blackened kind of thing. There's the occasional deep vocals kind of backing up the raspy vocals on this. Fantastic riffs, really good, like, you know, hints of melody here and there. Highly recommended. I will leave links for everything on this, I promise this time. I hate leaving links for whatever reason. It's time-consuming, but I want everybody to check out this stuff, so definitely for Desolate anyway. Definitely a band worth researching into from Mass. So I've got these kind of grouped into location and genre, sort of. I'm going to get into the Florida stuff that I've been obsessing over lately and that I've purchased. This is Monstrosity's Imperial Doom. This is a product of the collusion there. Don't think this is an official release. Classic record. If you didn't know, George Corpse Grinder Fisher sings on this. It's Florida stuff. It definitely sounds like Florida stuff. It sounds like a little bit more of a simplistic, kind of Morbid Angel approach. A little less twisted, a little bit more straightforward. Great organic sounding drums. Although this was recorded at Moresound, I don't think Scott Burns produced it. But yeah, very, very in-your-face, great stuff. I mean, it's no surprise that this guy ended up getting the job for Cannibal Corpse after Chris Barnes left. Excellent recording, excellent band. The one after that with the really bad CGI eggs on the cover is also really good. I can't remember the name of it right now. This is one that I remember that my buddy Matt was really into all the time back in the day. Resurrection's Embalmed Existence. This is a reissue. Okay, this is a reissue. Hard to read the label name yet again. Looks like something like Talagalanin Records. Anyway, it's the full length with some demo bonuses. There's, not related to the music and not really important, there's some little vignettes, some little spoken word skits in between of a guy who sounds a lot like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, saying some pretty weird stuff, and there's some bonus skits and stuff like that at the end. It's very unnecessary and weird. But anyway, the music is, I remember it being a lot faster, but it's a lot more churning, sort of like a more technical obituary. The double bass really gives it that sort of crushing, churning sort of vibe to it. Really fucking great. I have both Brutality records here. These are legit reissues on Disembodied Records. You have Screams of Anguish, their wonderful debut, followed by When the Sky Turns Black. And the music's so similar on the both of them, I feel like you could listen to both of these in a row and it would feel just like one album. The production's also very similar. The only difference being that Screams of Anguish has more of these kind of synthy, creepy interludes that really kind of carry on the vibe of the record really well. When the Sky Turns Black has a cover of Electric Funeral by Black Sabbath on it, which is a very good cover, but kind of messes with the flow a little bit. But the music's, again, really precise, very heavy, scalpel precision, just technical enough. Brutal. Classic Florida death metal. Excellent stuff. Can't get enough of this stuff lately. It seems like they don't make it like they used to. You know, a lot of bands are kind of aping Autopsy or aping Swedish stuff. You don't hear... Maybe it's just harder to pull off these days to do this really technically adept, very slightly kind of almost thrashy in execution, stuff in the vein of like Deicide. There's a lot of moments on this that harken to Deicide, but less satanic and just straight up, well, brutal. I don't know. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that this stuff isn't getting... The sound isn't getting strip mined. If anybody knows of any modern bands like that, let me know. So then, this band, I've gone completely apeshit over, completely lost my mind. Ben has talked about these guys a lot, and I heard about it from his channel, Brain Smasher. And started by buying this off of blackmetal.com. They had a big sale that I cashed in on. Big 50% off sale. This is an odds and ends compilation of demos and EPs and stuff like that. I also just got the Return to Mystery full length and the Immortal Kind EP. These are all on different labels. This is on Metabolic. This is on Unisound Recordings. This is the one I've spun the most. The full length. Return to Mystery. I can't believe how effectively this band combines two very disparate sounds, namely kind of more primordial, cavemanish, Florida death metal, particularly like early Death and Obituary, and mixes it with De Mysteriis Dom Satanas era mayhem stuff, like those icy, sort of eerie, not quite right melodies from De Mysteriis Dom Satanas are the fast parts, and the slower parts are more reminiscent of Obituary, and the vocals are like a more high-pitched sort of John Tardy, and it's just a marriage made in heaven. I can't gush about this enough. I've been playing the shit out of it. And this is a little bit newer. I think this is actually the last thing they did. It's from 2005 or 2006, the EP here, The Immortal Kind. Also really good. I feel like there's less of that DMDS kind of vibe on it. There's more of almost like a slight keyboard-tinged, like vampiric, early good Cradle of Filth kind of thing going on, mixed with that aforementioned death metal influence. But it's great. It's really, really good. And this odds and ends thing, it's, you know, it's kind of all over the place. Some of the stuff almost just sounds like a more basic Celtic Frosty kind of death metal on it. They do a bunch of covers. They do Hole in the Sky, Sabbath cover again, Haunting the Chapel by Slayer, Gypsy by King Diamond. Cool shit. Very, very good. Highly recommend them. It's a complete wonder to me that I had no idea about this stuff when it was going on. Like I mentioned in my last video, I was completely wrapped up in getting into death rock and goth and stuff, and, you know, DIY hardcore punk, and had no idea that this was going on. And I wouldn't have been interested in it at the time anyway, because I was in one of those phases. Not too much just straight up thrash for what I've been listening to lately, but I decided that it was time to really pull the trigger on some Rigor Mortis stuff. I had the self-titled on cassette and listened to it quite a bit. And I mentioned it for the Farley contest intro. Just fantastic thrash. There's something about the production that's kind of weird. It's definitely drenched in reverb. The guitars aren't quite loud enough. It sounds like they might be playing through like a crappy amp or something like that, but kind of around the middle of the record, right about Wizard of Gore, it really kicks off into high gear. It feels like one of those albums where it kind of gains steam and really kicks off towards the middle. But yeah, not so fast. A lot of horror-inspired stuff. There's a Reanimator song. Slow Death is the name of the song. That Wizard of Gore, there's a song called Demons. Hopefully it's about the movie. But they really pulled it together sound-wise and tightened up for the EP freaks. Just 5 songs. I love the self-title, but for my money, I'm going to have to go with this one as the one I like the most right now. Just airtight. Freaks, the first song, is probably the best song on the record. But all the way through, it just smokes. They have another release, a last and final album called Rigor Mortis. Rick and Mortius. Rigor Mortis versus the Earth or versus the World, something like that. It's also really good. To me, it was a little bit more leaning on like almost sort of a crossover hardcore punk kind of thing from my cursory listen or two of it. But I really like that too. I'd like to get it eventually. It's scarce and kind of expensive even on CD right now, so I may hold off on that for a while. And kind of in a similar territory, Sceptre from Chicago. The EP Metal Supremacy. So I got into Sceptre last year when my tape trading buddy Mario from Costa Rica dubbed me the Up Thy Ass demo, and I fell in love with it. I was mistakenly said that that's all that they had when I talked about it. They actually had this EP in 2 full lengths. Shows what I know. But this is just great knuckle dragging. Like, if you look up knuckle dragging in the dictionary, this cover's next to it. just Celtic Frost inspired, unabashedly metal. Tongue-in-cheek kinda, but not on some ironic, dumb bullshit. Very, very fun, funny, great riffs. I can't wait to dig more into their stuff. They have an album called Fucking Metal Motherfuckers that is pretty much a must-have in my opinion. And it looks like most of the stuff out there used is pretty reasonable, so hopefully I'll be grabbing it sooner than later. I have so much stuff to occupy my time right now, though, so it'll probably be a while before I pull the trigger on those other Sceptre records. Then we have the debut from Fleshcrawl, Descendants the Absurd. Thank you, eBay Russia. Originally on Blackmark. I had a Blackmark compilation when I was in high school. I think it was called A Touch of Evil. Can't remember off the top of my head. But it had all these on it. Fleshcrawl, Seance, Cemetery. So many good bands. And I didn't realize that Blackmark didn't become a bona fide full-on label until around that time. Up until, all throughout the 80s, up until that point, it was just Bathory stuff that came out on there. But their roster for black and death metal in the early 90s was fantastic. Fleshcrawl is definitely no exception to that. Might be the first case of a non-Swedish band worshipping the Swedish sound. You know, you got Entombed and Dismember and Nihilist and Grave all over this. Definitely has that approach to songwriting. Although I feel like Fleshcrawl, being a German band, there's some other stuff kind of coming in there. There's sort of an Asphyx-esque, not that Asphyx is from Germany, but close enough. There's almost an Asphyx-esque kind of like slower, creepier, almost doomy kind of thing going on with a lot of it. But also picked up Unanimated's In the Forest of the Dreaming Dead. This has been recommended to me by a few watchers and commenters. Richard Wolf, I believe, recommended this to me. Thank you, Richard. And as far as like a melodic Black and Death kind of thing, you know, along the lines of Dawn, Dissection, and Sacramentum, who I'll be talking about in a minute. This band was from Stockholm, though. And they were around earlier than a lot of that stuff that started blowing up more towards the mid-90s. This came out in 1992. I believe it originally came out on Grindcore Records in the United States. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It's the same label as, like, I want to say Crowbar. Changed their name at some point, but getting off track. It's a good marriage of different types of death metal and black metal, particularly from Scandinavia. It's got that definite heavily influenced by melodic traditional heavy metal thing that a lot of bands like Dissection and Sacramentum had, but there's also a little bit more just straight up detuned brutal death metal climbing in there. There's also a lot of kind of varied instrumentation. There's the fourth track on there, Firestorm, is a lot. It has clean vocals and kind of brings to mind like the Viking era Bathory stuff, the Hammerheart kind of shit. It's really good. The whole thing is really good. My only complaint is that it kind of suffers from the same production issues that the Red in the Sky Is Ours has, that's sort of recorded with wet cucumbers or whatever the quote was. The guitars are not very chainsaw-y at all. They do the job, but they're a little quiet. But other than that, it's got all the trappings of this stuff that I like. You know, the acoustics, the occasional keyboard. There's, speaking of it, the Entombed influence on the third song, Blackness of the Fallen Star. They go into a little haunting kind of instrumental passage that is strikingly similar to the music from Phantasm, a la Left Hand Path. And I don't care. I'm not hating. I can listen to that all day. A million bands. Just release a whole CD of a band just doing that over and over again. I'll listen to it. Shit's awesome. So speaking of Sacramentum, we got Far Away from the Sun. So you got some Christian Necrolord Wayland cover art there. Just incredible. Melodic death metal, black metal. Talk about dynamic. You know, I've been digging into all this stuff lately, getting reacquainted with Dissection after kind of not listening to them for a few years, getting into Dawn, getting into a few newer bands that are kind of approaching this style. Marduk, Those One Light's been a big one, but as far as like just pure bombast and slapping you in the face from like second one, this record really kind of does it for me. I mean, it's catchy as hell. The melodies are completely enchanting. it's just really, really good. And I enjoy it very much. Not much else to say other than that. Another one that's been brought to my attention thanks to Ben's lovely channel is Maze of Torment. This is Death Strikes. This came out in 2000. This was produced at Sunlight. Definitely after the fact for the classic era of stuff that was recorded at Sunlight from Sweden. This is, you know, it's got that sort of deeper toned death metal approach, but it's very catchy 80s thrash in a lot of ways. It's got choruses, it's got hooks, certainly fun. And the riffs are high quality as well. This was a score from blackmetal.com. Death Strike of Pure Violence. And it was mastered by James Murphy. So there you go. But yeah, if you like blackened thrash, you know, your thrash to have a little bit more of an aggressive edge to it, a little bit more infernal sounding, you cannot go wrong with this. The production's excellent. The feel of it's great. It's just awesome, unholy, satanic thrash metal with a good death and black kind of underpinning to it. Moving in a slightly different direction, but definitely in the same neck of the woods, is Polans Throne. This is Mutiny of Death. This came out in 2003 on Pagan Records. Another blackmetal.com score. I don't know why I bought this. Like, the thing about this is great. I just don't remember what attracted me to it. I think the name was somewhat familiar. This is an excellent record. I'm not sure where I heard of this band, but they talk about just almost going off the rails. Certainly firmly, you know, rooted in black and death metal, but having an approach and a wily, feral kind of approach that makes them almost seem kind of hardcore, kind of punk. I don't think that's what they're going for, but it's got that sort of energy that almost like, I don't know, like Void or somebody had, that where it feels like it's going to fall apart and go off the rails. That sort of Antaeus thing where the drums aren't behind the beat. They feel like they're trying to go faster than the guitars. And the vocals aren't like a pronounced growl. They're not a shriek. They're very atypical. Like, it sounds like a really angry shout, but from somebody that's like genuinely psychotic. And it's a short listen. It's only 30 minutes. And that includes, for 12 songs, and that includes a Cyanide cover and I believe an Asphyx cover. But yeah, over in a hot minute, and just has that urgency that I feel like a lot of like almost like power violence and grind has, except that it's firmly rooted in black metal and death metal. There's parts that almost make me feel like this is almost like Hellhammer riffs, but with like incredibly fast music. It's great. It's primal as fuck, and I recommend it. Want to check out more? Throneum. This is good for some yucks. Slaughtered Priest from Greece. Time Before Time Records. It's enjoyable. It's black thrash with a drum machine. Very kind of silly in a way, and I think that's, you know, probably not a mistake. Songs like Proud to Be a Sinner, Decapitation of the Virgin Mary, you know, that sort of thing. It's got gang vocals that feel really out of place, and the drum machine also feels a little weird. The riffs are good, though. Good sleazy, you know, Venom, Motorhead inspired, but sped up, you know, sort of a Teutonic kind of thing as well. Not bad, you know, worth what I paid for it. Said to myself, what the hell? I'll get this collection of early Abigail stuff. Their later stuff never really grabbed me. I'm not entirely sure why. However, this stuff is pretty cool. You know, it's nothing really for me to write home about too much, but it's firmly in the Dark Throne worshipping camp, with maybe a little bit more of a sleazy punk kind of underbelly to it, a little bit. Lots of covers. Obviously wearing their influences right on their sleeves. Sodom, Equimanthorn by Bathory, Cutthroat by Bulldozer, and Possessed by Bathory. Very raw recordings. These are all demos and promos and stuff like that. Calls to mind the Dark Throne Black Trilogy, or whatever, if you want to call it that. I thought I was getting a really good deal with this, and I was excited. I got Demoncy, Joined in Darkness. And I feel like an asshole. I feel like I'm really kind of missing out on something here, but I'm not into this. You know, I know they're classic US BM, and I liked Faustian Gone. That was gifted to me from Brandon from a while ago. Very raw. I mean, that was a demo. Faustian Gone, very raw, atmospheric. You know, demo level, kind of obscure black metal stuff. This is just missing something for me. I don't know what it is. It might just be from the lack of cashiness, lack of riffs. I struggle with stuff that doesn't have that. I know that it's all about the atmosphere with bands like this, but to me it just kind of sounds like if Beharit had a record in between their first two releases that, you know, was slow, like Drawing Down the Moon, but as, like, you know, primal as Oath of the Black Blood, and just was kind of boring. I don't know. Opinions are like assholes, you know. Everybody's got one. Maybe it'll grow on me. I mean, I've only given it a couple of listens. I'll give it a few more shots, but yeah, I don't get what the hubbub is with this band, or at least this release. Faustian Gone's cool. Then you got Samain, Indomitus. Folky, atmospheric kind of black metal stuff from 1997 from Australia. These guys probably liked Ulver a lot. Early Ulver, anyway. Lots of acoustics. Some clean vocals that kind of don't pull it off all the way. I feel like the clean vocals could be better. That's like the main detractor for me. There's some great songwriting, you know, cool stuff going on. Particularly like their acoustic playing and stuff like that. But yeah, when they kind of try to do the Viking chant kind of melodic thing, it's, you know, rolled the dice with this. Maybe I'll spend a little bit more time with it before I get too judgy. Only spun it a couple of times so far. Then we got Anarchus. This is a discography of this Mexican grind band, Anarchus, and it's called Increasing the Hate. Everything they did between 1990 and 1996. This is on Half-Life Recordings. Cool band. They were sort of a political grind, like bordering on almost even crust band, but they played with death metal bands in Mexico, it looks a lot like. I had one of their 7-inches at one point and was trying to dig it out. Couldn't find it. I fucking hate when that happens. But yeah, you can see here they played with Mortician, Phobia, Krabathor, Master, Asuk, all kinds of bands. The first stuff on this is kind of almost more straightforward and thrashy in a way. Still very dirty and kind of got a crust vibe, but a little bit more organized. Then they get into some demos and stuff, and it's almost like pure noise grind kind of shit. There's a handful of covers on this. They covered UK's Heresy, great band, as well as also covering Equimanathorn by Bathory. So that's a popular one to cover, it looks like. Revenge covered that too, right? And then we have Bowel, Rotten Fecal Duct. I saw this pop up on the webpage when I was surfing through the blackmetal.com sale, and I was like, oh man, I gotta get this. I wanted this so bad when I was a kid. This is members of Integrity and One Life Crew doing what they perceived as death metal / grindcore stuff. It's really raw, really sloppy, and you can hear like the switched around Integrity riffs on it, like Integrity riffs played backwards, basically. There's a song called Construction Boot Stomp, Hacked Humans, Sadistic Sodomizer. Oh, it's totally spelled wrong. Sadistic Somizer, Gacy, like in John Wayne Gacy. Enema Abortion. Yeah, just these guys just having a laugh, fucking around, experimenting with a different genre than what they were usually playing. I think Chubby Fresh from One Life Crew plays in this and some other bands. But it's got the Dark Empire Order form in here. Integrity, Confront, Bowel, Ringworm, Outface. Outface, the band that Derek Green, who sings for Sepultura now, is from. Little known fact. Cleveland hardcore guy singing for Sepultura. But yeah, good for a listen. It's not the best thing in the world, but for me it's like a special piece of nostalgia. Anyway, yeah, I just got a ton of shit in the mail today, so I'm glad I'm banging this out now. And I'll be getting into that soon. Not much else to say. Thoughts, criticisms, thumbs ups. thumbs downs, throw them at me. Yeah, have a good one. Ground Zero Salem, signing out.